Hello folks, just a quick video. Yeah, okay, so where you are now. I've spoken a lot about, where I was a year ago, because basically tomorrow would be the anniversary of my dogs being taken. It would be a year from that time, so an awful lot has happened in that time, hasn't it? Certainly for me, an awful lot has happened in that time. In the world, an awful lot has happened in that time, and in the lives of most people in the world. An awful lot has happened in that time. So for a second, think about your understanding now, where you are now. And then think back to where your understanding was a year ago. What have you achieved? What have you learned over the past year? What have you learned about yourself? How have you grown in that time? I've done videos recently talking about situations that weren't right for you in the past that might be now. Why would that be? That'd be because you're different now to how you were before. So what might not have been suitable for you then will be now. Well, it's like we were talking today while preparing food and when other people were eating about the fact that certain cultures can eat incredibly hot, spicy food and others don't. But that's all down to learned behaviour and learned ways of eating, and what is tolerable to you changes over time. And you become different and your tolerances change. As you get used to the heat of the Carolina Reaper, for example, then you'll move on to the next one. But the whole point is you're supposed to move on. And a knife, that's one tiny example of how people could have changed over the past year, how the tolerances to hot spices could have changed, how they've developed in that way. It's important to look back, to always look back and to take a measure of how far you come, even in a short amount of time, because a year is a short amount of time really. And I've said in videos that I've done that really when I think about where I was a year ago, I am amazed at how far I've come. Yeah, the fact that my whole understanding of things has changed and my nature has changed in that short time. And yeah, I said in the last one that if we don't get wow, if we don't aim for that, then what is the point? We should just give up. Well, to a certain degree that's right, and to a certain degree that has to be our understanding, to the moon or bust. Does it matter enough to risk everything? It did for Yeshua, didn't it? It did for Yeshua. It mattered enough for him to give everything. What does it matter to us? Yeah, at what point are we going to say, okay, we're now going to take it that seriously? Like what came into my mind the other day is that to a certain degree, continuing church without understanding why things aren't working, why people aren't being healed, when they're being prayed for and things like that, why these things aren't happening, why God hasn't brought revival yet. All of these things are questions that there are answers. They all have answers. But the majority of churches don't seem to have been bothered to even ask the question, yet alone wait for the answer. They've simply carried on regardless, hoping that somehow God will change. Now, carry on regardless was okay as a film in the 70s with Barbara Windsor and Sid James and people like that, as a slightly raunchy comedy of that era. It was okay for that. But how can that ever be okay for the people that have given their lives to God? How can a carry on regardless attitude ever be okay? So if there is no noticeable improvement or noticeable growth in your life, if you've just been carrying on regardless, hoping that God will somehow just do something in your life to get it going again, you need to stop. And you need to spend time with God and to understand what's happening or what isn't happening and why. Because where you are now should always be really different to where you were previously. Now, I certainly have had experiences in my life where I was in a worse position than where I was a year before. That can happen. And again, the important point with that is that when that happens, but that's when you've got to ask questions. Again, you've got to go to Father and you've got to understand why. Because if God is doing something, like in the Bible study the other day, I think the pastor, he was talking about renovation. That when you renovate, you have to knock walls down. You don't want to put new walls there, and something that's going to look worse before they look better. So if you're in that, then don't worry if things look worse now than they did a year ago. If you're going through that process of renovation, then you should expect that to be the case. And if that's the case, then don't worry. If God tells you renovation, then trust in the process. You might not be able to see the end result right now, no. But, it's all very well telling people you trust God. You've got to actually trust God. Yeah, not easy. And that's the point. Talking is very cheap. Walking the walk is difficult. When things are happening and when things are bad, then trusting in God. God is doing this or allowing this for a purpose. That's the point. People say allowing. We've got to stop saying allowing. We really do. We've got to stop saying allowing, because allowing is stupidity. It's as if God had a plan and something else was happening and he's just, I'll allow it. It's not really what I want, but I'll allow it. That's complete rubbish. Either God is all-knowing and all-capable, or he's completely confused and, I didn't expect that to happen, but I'll allow it. God isn't allowing things. Anything that's happening in your life, God wants that to happen. For a reason. There is a reason why. But God wants that to happen. It's not a case where God is simply allowing. Either God is in control or he isn't. That's the point. With regards to allowing, either God is in control or he isn't. You can't say God is in control but then say, well, he wasn't in control of that thing, but he's allowing it to. What? I thought you said God was in control. Get rid of the word allowing from that sort of sentence, because it doesn't belong. Sometimes we go through stuff and God wants us to go through that stuff because it's character building, because he's breaking down those walls that are weak and making them stronger and replacing them with something that's far, far stronger. Because there are things that we need to do in the future that we need to be strong for. So all of that is a blessing. As I've said before, quite often, things that appear to be a curse at the beginning end up being revealed as a blessing. And I don't think really, God does not allow curses to come upon you in order to hurt you. He wants curses to come upon you sometimes as a way of seeing how you respond, how you react, and he's trying to show you something about you and something about him. He's trying to show you that even when these things happen, he's still God. He's still God in your life. He still is in control. He still has your back. He still won't let you fall, even though it may feel like you're falling. You never really hit the ground. So, But, as I say, it's either God's will or it isn't. But there you go. How is it not God's will? Because people often say, well, all the good things are of God, but the bad things are not of God, they're of us. Right, okay. But often the bad things lead to the good things. Often the good things come out the bad. So why wouldn't God want that bad to happen to produce the good? Difficult, isn't it, really? But this is the thing, is that we want to hold. The world has a system where it wants to hold people accountable for wrong that they do and say, you did it, you're to blame. If we as a society start to say that God wanted that to happen, you can't exactly put people in prison for doing what God wanted them to do. Can you? So, yeah, this is why we have this complication with regards to, God's completely in control and God's will is happening in your life. But that's the point. We always say, your kingdom come, your will be done. What if his will is already being done? What if all the things that are happening is his will? And it's being done now. Yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly. Well, the things that we perceive as good, bad, ugly. Because good, bad, ugly as we perceive it won't necessarily be good, bad, ugly as he sees it. Yeah. I can't give you complete answers with regards to this. These are just questions. Yeah, when this video started, I had no idea how it was going to go. It's gone in this direction, so okay. Cool. It's raised some fairly interesting questions. So that's okay. I don't mind it. If I don't have the answers right now, I don't care. I mean, maybe I'm not supposed to have the answers. Maybe it's simply the case that the questions are raised and somebody who hears the questions is given the answer. And maybe that's the point. So there you go. You take care. God bless. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.